A totally devastating story. South Korean police have arrested a woman. Can you imagine who this woman is? She is the mother of two children, and these children were murdered by this woman, and these dead bodies were staying in suitcases for a few years, and the children are aged 7 and 10. Can you imagine? This woman migrated from South Korea to New Zealand, and these suitcases were found last month. This family lived in New Zealand, so they were from South Korean descent. The father of these children died of cancer before these children were murdered by their mother. Can you imagine? It's so horrible, it's incredible. Later, New Zealand applied for extradition of the woman from South Korea. What we found is that the woman and her family left South Korea living in New Zealand in 2018, and it is found that the woman after arrest is believed to be 42 years old. She is a New Zealand national, but she's from Korean descent. A global Interpol warrant was sought by New Zealand, and on Thursday last, the police raided an apartment in South Korea, and there they caught the woman. And the woman was living in Auckland for a few years, and their the grandparents of the children, are still living in New Zealand. A separate family, another family bought some suitcases. These suitcases were abandoned suitcases. And when they opened, they found the dead bodies. And can you imagine, these dead bodies were sitting there a few years ago. And this family, who was not involved for this murder, was in distress, very natural, as they found two dead bodies, two children in two suitcases. They started having very difficult time. They are now in distress. Let's see. BBC News says South Korean police say they have arrested a woman accused of murdering her two children who were found in suitcases in New Zealand last month. In a case that shocked the country, the bodies were discovered by strangers who had bought the abandoned suitcases from a storage unit in Auckland. The bodies were believed to have been stored for a few years. Korean police said the victims were aged 7 and 10. New Zealand has applied for the woman's extradition from South Korea. Police in Auckland said they had worked closely with South Korean authorities in the search for the woman after saying last month they believed she was in South Korea. The woman had fled to South Korea in 2018, and the children's dead, South Korean police said. She is a 42-year-old New Zealand national of Korean descent. A global Interpol warrant had been issued for her arrest. Officers arrested her on Thursday in a midnight raid on an apartment in the southeastern city of Ulsan. It followed a stakeout after investigators received tips about her whereabouts, Seoul's National Police Agency said. Last month, New Zealand police said they were searching for the woman after they managed to identify the children whose names have not been disclosed. To have someone in custody overseas within such a short period of time has all been down to the assistance of the Korean authorities and the coordination by New Zealand Police Interpol staff, said New Zealand Police Detective Inspector Tofilo Famanuya Value on Thursday. Police have requested the suspect be denied bail prior to her extradition to New Zealand, where she faces murder charges. Local media there reported the family had lived in Auckland for a few years, and the children's father had died of cancer prior to their deaths. They reported the children's grandparents still live in New Zealand. The children's bodies were discovered in early August after a separate family bought a trailer load of goods, including the suitcases, in an online auction. That family had no connection to the deaths and had suffered great distress in the period following the discovery, officers said. This is from BBC. Please subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.